Hey kids, it's Mr. Fly here, hope you're well. Now, I've been the proud owner, or I should say I and my wife have been the proud owner of the Kawasaki Z900 RS for about 2 years and the Kawasaki Z650 RS for about 6 months. The Z650 is actually my wife's bike, but of course I know both bikes well. So having lived with these bikes for a while now and got to know them properly well as owners, I thought it would be a good opportunity to do a bit of a comparison video looking at the differences between the two bikes, because superficially they look kind of the same, don't they? But they are very, very different. So if you're in the market for a retro bike and you don't know which one to go for, whether to go for the Z900 RS or the Z650 RS, stick around and stay tuned, this video's for you. Okay, so welcome back to the channel, folks. Thank you very much indeed for joining me here on this comparison of the Z650 RS against the Z900 RS. Before we get into the details of the differences in spec, how they ride, that sort of thing, let's just have a little look at the styling on the two bikes, because as I say, they are kind of superficially similar, but when you look closely, they are quite different. So let's start off with, say, the engines on both. Let's have a look at the Z900 RS. You see the engine here, of course, is a 4-cylinder engine, but you see they've got this nice finishing, like it's faux cooling fins. They've just you know, ground off the edges there to make them look like cooling fins. It looks really nice. On the Z650, we don't have that. We've just got the bog standard engine without that sort of detail. So the first thing I would say is that the attention to detail on the Z900 RS, which is of course a much more expensive bike, is much better than the Z650 RS. Just the overall fit and finish of this bike feels better to me. The paintwork, just the plastics and everything on the Z900 are superior to that on the Z650. That's not to say these aren't nice. I'm just saying that they're nicer on the Z900. If you look at other things that look maybe more superficially similar, let's look at the, say for example, the headlights. If we look at the headlight on the Z900 RS, it's got this nice bezel, and you can see it's all LED in there. And yeah, very nice, fine. Is it the same as the one on the Z650? Well, no, it isn't. You can see this is a much simpler unit when you look in there. It's LED, and it's got the bezel and so on, but it is actually a very different design to the headlights around. You see you've got these marks in the back here. On the 900, it's just a bowl. So that's another difference. Let's have a look at the instrumentation on the Z650. Lovely twin dials, which I absolutely love. You've got kilometres in the middle, and sorry, on this one, you've got kilometres in the middle and miles an hour on the outside, with blue and white lettering. Looks very, very nice. On the 900, very, very similar. Blue and white lettering again, kilometres in the middle and miles an hour on the speedo. But again, there's something about them that just, these ones on the Z900 just feel slightly better quality. Little details like the fuel camp on the Z650. Again, looks very nice, nothing wrong with it at all. Possibly a little bit more premium looking on the 900 with the machining around the edge, that sort of thing. So overall, I think what I'm saying is, although they look kind of similar, these bikes, and they both look very attractive, particularly with the gold wheels, I think, the Z900, there's no doubt the fit and finish on that is better. All right, so much for the styling then. Let's take each bike for a ride, and we'll do a direct comparison of things like how they go, stop, comfort, that sort of thing. Right, let's get on with it. Okay, first up for the comparison rides then, I've jumped on the Z900 RS, and whilst I'm not going to do a full review of how it rides, you can look at other videos of that. I'm just going to go over the sort of basic things by means of comparison with the two bikes. So I'm going to look at go, handling, stopping and comfort on each bike. Those, I think, personally are the key things. So how do they compare? So it's difficult to know, isn't it, which bike to do first? Whether it's an error doing the most powerful bike first, I don't know. But anyway, I have come out on the Z900 first, purely because it was just easier to grab hold of. So that first thing, go. How does the bike go? Well, it goes extremely well. At the end of the day, it is a 947cc, so almost a litre bike. It is a 4-cylinder, so it's the sort of, it has that top end rush, so you need to really wind it up to get it flying. But having said that, they've got the torque curve such that there is grunt low down as well. And the first thing you notice about this bike when you ride it, even in third gear as I am here, is the urgency on the throttle. It does want to go. It feels like a quick bike, this. And make no mistake, it is a quick bike. At the end of the day, it is based, of course, on the Z900, the street bike, and you know, I would class this as like a comfortable sports bike in terms of its performance. So unfortunately I'm stuck behind this white van, which is often the case on the Michelin Flyer, but there's no doubt this bike absolutely wants to go. This is a twisty road. I don't think I'm going to have a chance to overtake him, unfortunately. In fact, let me just pull over here, let this car behind me go, because I'm going to want to test the stopping power soon. Alright, so she goes alright. What about the comfort? Well, retro bikes, one of their appeals, well, to me at least, is that they are comfortable. You're sat upright, almost in an armchair position, legs pretty much at 90 degrees. On the Z900 RS, they're slightly acute. The pegs are a little bit higher up, and your legs are probably at, I don't know, 85 degrees. But it is a comfortable place. The handlebars are quite wide. I am sat with a little bit of a lean forward, but no weight on my wrists. I mean, it is that armchair position, but what I'm saying is I'm not bolt upright on this bike. But it's a very comfortable place to be, no problem at all. The seat on it, the standard seat that I've got on here, is nicely padded. It's nice and long as well, so depending on your height you can move forward or back to find somewhere that's comfortable for you. So comfort is really, really nice on the Z900 RS. Right, next point I said I was going to compare with stopping power. There's nothing behind me. Oh, the brakes on here are prodigious. It's got Brembo brakes on the front, and in fact when I stopped there on these nice dry Spanish roads, the ABS kicked in, so it's quite the ABS does kick in quite nicely. Let's just try this rear brake. Rear brake's very good as well on here. It's got a nice progressive feel. There's nothing wooden about it. You can feel when it's initially bitten, and then you can pile on the pressure and keep that braking power coming. So the brakes on here very, very nice. This is the SE model, so it has got the upgraded brakes on here and braided brake lines, and I think it's got the Brembo master cylinder. Has it or not? No, it hasn't actually. It's got a Nissin master cylinder, but the brakes are very, very good on here. Right, next thing I said I was going to compare is handling, so let me come around the roundabout here. Oh, there's a police car going there. Look, I've got to be a bit careful because I'm going to be behind him. Just think about how this bike feels, because it is quite a physically big old lump, this. It feels like a big bike when you're sat on it. Because it's 4-cylinder, it's quite wide. So your legs, although they're not splayed apart, they do feel quite wide apart. And it is, relatively heavy bike, but it doesn't feel heavy when you're riding it. And in fact, the handling is absolutely beautiful through here. Doesn't feel heavy. I do have to give it quite a lot of counter steer to get around these fairly tight turns. But yeah, handling is absolutely lovely on here. Doesn't feel like it's falling in or anything like that. It's not so lazy in the turns that you have to muscle it around. I mean, you do have to give it some counter steer, as I say, but it's yeah, it's nice. Handling's, once you set it up in the corner, it tracks around an absolute treat. It doesn't feel skittish. I think because of its weight and its geometry, it just makes the handling nice and predictable on here. Right, so I'm stuck behind a bus and the police now, so let's jump on the Z650 RS and do a direct comparison while this is fresh in my mind. Okay, as if by magic, we swap over onto the Z650 RS then for a direct comparison again for those things like go, comfort, stop and handling. How does it compare to the Z900 RS? I'm on exactly the same piece of road, as you can see, and I'm even stuck behind a car again, so it's an identical comparison. How do the two compare? Well, first off, talking about go, I said the Z900 felt urgent. Well, to be honest, so does this. Now this is of course a twin-cylinder motorcycle, so completely different engine architecture, and twins are known for their low-end grunt, and this has certainly got that. And in fact, I would say this doesn't feel any less eager low down than the Z900 does. Of course, this would run out of puff at the top end, where the Z900 just keeps going. That's the difference between a twin and a 4-cylinder. But in terms of go, this has got loads of grunt, especially low down at these sort of lower speeds that I'm doing through this twisty section of road. You do have to work the gearbox a little bit more, the ratios are a bit closer. And of course it sounds completely different. There are also some vibrations that you can feel on the bike, which you don't get on the Z900 of course. Again, the difference between a twin and 4-cylinder. The
4-cylinder is just silky smooth, whereas this one you can feel that you're on a motorcycle. The vibrations aren't bad though by any means. In fact, they're quite pleasant. So don't let that put you off the bike. So in terms of go, plenty on here. I also own a Royal Enfield 650, and this feels much more urgent and much quicker than that does. Very much more of a modern engine on here. Yeah, it feels sprightly. Okay, what about comfort? Well, it feels very different. It's very interesting when you jump off of one and straight onto the other. It feels very different to the Z900. It is very comfortable. Again, it's a retro bike, so you're sat upright. This time though, my legs feel a lot higher up. The pegs feel a lot higher off the ground on here. It feels like my knees are around my ears compared to the Z900 RS. This just feels like a much smaller bike. I'm a medium-sized fella, and I feel relatively big on here. Whereas on the Z900 I felt relatively small, so that might be a deciding factor for you depending on how big you are. This feels like a small bike, whereas the Z900 feels like a big bike. But it's perfectly comfortable. Handlebars feel very similar. No weight on your wrist once again. You're sat in that sort of armchair retro position. The seat that we've got on this bike actually is the lowered one. My wife is slightly vertically challenged, so they got the lowered seat on here, which has got slightly less padding than the standard seat. But it's none the worse for it. It's perfectly comfortable. So yeah, from a comfort point of view, nothing to choose between this and the Z900 really, other than this feels a lot like a smaller bike. Right, let's just try the brakes, because the brakes aren't so high spec on here. In fact, why don't I pull over to a stop on the brakes? Let's do that. Once I get a straight-ish bit of road. Let's do it here. Alright, I'm indicating on the brakes. Yeah, wow, actually these brakes feel great. Now they are lower spec than on the Z900 RS SE that I have, which has fancy Brembos. This has Nissin calipers. We'll go through the specs in a minute. But I'll tell you what, it's such a light bike this. You don't need masses of braking, and those Nissans feel absolutely fine. Let's just give them a little tap again. There's quite a bit of fork dive on there, more than I noticed on the Z900. But the brakes are fine. Let's just try the rears. Yeah, rears aren't anywhere near as good as the Z900. Did feel the ABS cut in a little bit on the rear one there, but didn't feel it cut in on the front, which is odd because I did on the 900. But yeah, stopping power on here completely adequate. Again, light bike, so you don't need masses of braking power. Great fun through these twisties. I think the big difference is the lightness of this bike. It just feels so much lighter, much more compact. The Z900 feels like a more serious bike, if you know what I mean. But this arguably more fun on these type of roads. Alright, let's look specifically at the handling then. This time we don't have, hopefully we're not going to be following the police down. Maybe we'll get a clear run of it. It's got great sound, great note. I mean the Z900 does too, but it's a very different sound. Yeah, handling on here is fantastic actually. You don't have to put so much effort into the turns on this as you do on the Z900. I mentioned on the 900 that you had to use quite a bit of counter steer. It was just short of manhandling it, but it was tending towards that, whereas this, none of that. You just kind of lean it and in it goes. You know what? On these sort of roads I might even say the handling is better. Now it's a little bit unfair because I was slowed down on the Z900 because I was behind that policeman. I didn't want to draw attention to myself. Great fun. Yeah, the handling is really, it's absolutely made for these sort of roads. Might run out of puff a bit if you're going at higher speed stuff, but yeah, on these roads it's absolutely fantastic, the Z650.
Alright, so much for the riding differences then. Should we take a little look at the specs? I've made some notes of some of the key specs on the bikes, again by way of comparison. So starting off with the engine on the Z900, this is a 948cc 4-cylinder unit putting out 111 PS. On the Z650 it's a 649cc parallel twin putting out 68 PS, so it's about a third down on power. Brakes on the Z900, well the front at least, are 4-pot calipers and they're on 300mm discs. On the Z650 on the front it's got 2-pot calipers and they're on 300mm discs. Suspension on the Z900 on the fronts here, 41mm upside down forks with full adjustability. Front forks on the Z650 are 41mm right way up forks, and these are non-adjustable. Seat height on the Z900 is 835mm, and as standard on the Z650 the seat height is 820mm, although as I say we have lowered this for my wife. Weight wise the Z900 comes in at 215 kilograms curb weight, whereas the much lighter Z650 comes in at 187 kilograms curb weight, so that's 28 kilograms lighter than the bigger bike. Cost wise the Z900 starts from 11,799. The Z650 starts from 7,839, so £4 difference. Is that worth £4 less than that? I guess that's for you to decide. By the way, the model I've got here is the SE, which comes in, I think, about another £2 more than that. Yeah, this comes in at 13.5 grand, but for that you get the better brakes, better suspension, and the different paint schemes as well. All right then, so given those differences and comparisons, who then would I say the Z900 RS would suit? Who's this bike for? Well, obviously it's for somebody that appreciates the retro aesthetic. I mean, just look at it, it's an absolutely beautiful looking thing. But also somebody that appreciates a sporty ride. Make no mistake, this is a sports bike in retro clothing. It's got a, it's got a heck of an engine on here. It is basically a sports bike engine. It's almost a litre bike. It's got a good top end rush on this. This is a fast bike. It's not necessarily a bike for beginners. It is quite powerful, and it is also quite large and quite heavy, so if you're a bigger person then this bike would certainly suit you. So if you like a retro bike with a bit of sportiness and you've had a bit of experience on other bikes, then go for the Z900 RS. So who's the Z650 RS suitable for then? Well, again, it's people that appreciate the retro aesthetic. Again, just look at it, it's a beautiful looking machine. It is much smaller though, so certainly somebody that appreciates a smaller and lighter bike, maybe a beginner rider, or dare I say it, a smaller rider or a female rider, might appreciate the Z650 over the 900 because it is lighter, easier to handle, easier to live with. Maybe a commuter, or indeed of course somebody on a bit more of a budget because it is that much cheaper. But it's a beautiful bike, handles beautifully. It just really depends on what you want the bike for. Okay, so there we go. That's my comparison of the two bikes, the mighty Kawasaki Z900 RS versus the Kawasaki Z650 RS from an owner's perspective. Which bike is right for you, of course, depends on where you are in your motorcycling journey, what you want the bike for, what your budget is, and so on. But hopefully that's given you a little bit of a flavour for the differences between the two bikes. I think they're both absolutely corking bikes, and they are keepers as far as me and Mrs. Fryer are concerned. All right, that's it for this time. Look forward to speaking to you again soon. Until then, this has been the Mr. and Flyer. Cheerio. Oh, another big difference I didn't mention on the styling. Look at the exhaust on the Z650. It's a sort of tucked under their Euro 6, I assume, affair. Not particularly attractive. Whereas on the Z900 RS, it's got this mighty, shiny, beautiful looking thing on the back end, a proper exhaust. That's not to say the Z650 is any lesser a bike though, of course.